The Galactic Council chamber was vast, its towering walls covered in glowing symbols of 100 alien races. The air buzzed with tension as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. Normally, these meetings were slow, full of long speeches and diplomatic games. But today was different. Today, fear filled the room. The reason? Humans. For centuries, the galaxy had been ruled by the oldest and strongest alien empires. They had seen new species rise and fall, and they had always believed they would remain in control. But humanity had changed everything. The Terran Republic, as humans called themselves, had expanded at an alarming speed. In just a few hundred years, they had built colonies on distant worlds, developed advanced warships, and fought back every threat that came their way. The alien empires had dismissed them at first, calling them short-lived, primitive, and reckless. But now, the humans had become a problem too big to ignore. A blue-skinned alien named Chalvik, the representative of the Varnock Dominion, slammed his fist on the table. His voice echoed across the chamber. "This is unacceptable. 5 of our fleets have fallen in just 6 months. They fight like mad beasts, never retreating, never surrendering." Another alien, a reptilian creature from the Sci-Fi Empire, hissed in agreement. "They are unlike any species we have faced before. When we destroy their ships, they build more. When we take their planets, they fight harder. They do not break." At the head of the table, High Chancellor Ralka, a member of the ancient and powerful Yulkar race, raised a hand for silence. His species had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years, and he had never felt fear, until now. "We must make a decision," Ralka said slowly. His deep voice rumbled through the hall. "Do we continue this war, or do we negotiate?" The chamber erupted into chaos. Some wanted to seek peace with humanity, fearing more losses. Others demanded an all-out war to crush the Terran Republic before it was too late. But there was one thing they all agreed on. Humanity was the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Meanwhile, on the Human Council's warship, far from the alien meeting, another discussion was taking place. Admiral Ross, the supreme commander of the Terran fleet, studied the holographic map in front of him. His sharp eyes moved over the glowing red marks, enemy fleets, gathering at the border of human space. He had fought many battles, but this time, something felt different. "They're planning something big," Ross muttered. Beside him, General Malik, a veteran of countless wars, crossed his arms. "They know they can't win in a fair fight. They'll try to overwhelm us with numbers, maybe hit a key colony to force us into a retreat." Ross nodded. "That's what I'd do if I were them." He turned to a nearby officer. "Send a report to the Human Council. We need to be ready." The officer saluted and left the room. Malik frowned. "Do you think the Council will approve preemptive action?" Ross sighed. "They might not have a choice. For years, humanity had fought defensive wars, pushing back enemies that tried to conquer them. But this time, the situation was changing. If the Galactic Council truly united against them, humanity would be outnumbered. They couldn't afford to wait. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the decision was finally made. Chalvik stood tall. "Then it is agreed. The combined forces of the Galactic Council will strike at the humans. We will break them before they grow too powerful." The delegates nodded in agreement, some hesitantly, others eagerly. The plan was set. War was coming. What they didn't know was that humanity had already sensed the storm on the horizon. And they were ready. The decision was made. The Galactic Council, after hours of heated debate, had chosen war. The alien empires would combine their forces and strike the Terran Republic before humanity could grow even stronger. For the first time in history, rival alien species put aside their differences for a single purpose: to destroy humanity. In the massive war chamber of the Sci-Fi Empire, high-ranking officers of different species gathered. A gigantic hologram of the Milky Way galaxy hovered in the air, red dots marking key human colonies. Chalvik, the Varnock Dominion's fleet commander, pointed at a glowing blue sector on the map. Our first target will be Orion 7. It is one of their outermost colonies, lightly defended. If we take it, we will cut off several of their supply routes. Excelthor General, his reptilian scales shining under the war room's lights, flicked his claws. Once Orion 7 falls, we move straight to Nuterra. That will force the humans to surrender. The plan was bold. The attack would begin in less than a week. Humanity had no idea what was coming. On board the Terran Republic's flagship, the Titan, Admiral Ross stood at the command deck. Ross had not slept much in the past few days. His instincts told him something was wrong. He had fought too many battles to ignore the feeling in his gut. Beside him, General Malik studied the latest reports. Enemy fleet movements have slowed down. They're planning something. Ross crossed his arms. They're gathering, waiting. They think we won't notice. Malik nodded. We need more information. If we strike too soon, we might walk into a trap. Ross turned to one of his officers. Send a stealth scout to the Orion 7 sector. I want real-time data on any enemy movement. The officer saluted and left immediately. Ross exhaled slowly. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. They thought humans could be pushed around. They were wrong. 4 days later, the invasion began. Orion 7, a peaceful human colony on the edge of Terran space, was not prepared for war. The planet's defenses were minimal, just a few orbital turrets and a small fleet of patrol ships. When the alien armada arrived, it was like a storm swallowing the sky. Over 500 enemy ships dropped out of hyperspace, weapons charging, shields activated. The Orion 7 defense commander, Captain Doyle, watched in horror from the colony's defense station. By the stars, a deep voice came through the communication line. It was Chalvik, the Varnock commander. Humans of Orion 7, surrender now. You are outnumbered. If you resist, we will show no mercy. Captain Doyle clenched his fists. He knew he had no chance of winning. But surrender, that was not the human way. He turned to his officers. Prepare all defense systems. Send an emergency signal to Admiral Ross. We hold the line for as long as we can. Then he responded to Chalvik. This is Captain Doyle of Orion 7. If you want this colony, you'll have to fight for it. Chalvik sneered. So be it. The alien fleet opened fire. Massive energy blasts rained down from the sky, striking the orbital turrets and destroying them in seconds. The human patrol fleet fought bravely, but they were outgunned and outnumbered. One by one, their ships exploded, vanishing into flames. On the surface, civilians ran for shelter as explosions shook the ground. The sky was filled with streaks of light. Human ships crashing, enemy weapons firing. Within 2 hours, Orion 7 fell. The news reached the Human Council within minutes. Inside the grand halls of the Terran Republic's war chamber, the most powerful leaders of humanity sat around a circular table. A hologram of Orion 7 flickered in the center, now marked as lost. The room was silent. Then President Carter spoke. They have made their choice, she said, her voice calm but firm. They believe we will hesitate, that we will negotiate. They are wrong. Admiral Ross, standing at the side of the room, clenched his jaw. Permission to retaliate. The president nodded. Not just retaliate. Admiral, we take the war to them. The council members agreed. Humanity would not sit back and wait for more attacks. The aliens wanted war. They would get total war. Meanwhile, deep in space, an elite group of human warships activated their engines. This was the Breakpoint Fleet, humanity's most advanced strike force. Their mission: hit the enemy where they least expect it. As the ships vanished into hyperspace, Admiral Ross sent out a single message to all human forces across the galaxy. The war has begun. No more holding back. No more playing fair. We fight until the last enemy fleet is gone. The fall of Orion 7 sent shockwaves across human space. Billions watched in horror as live broadcasts showed the once thriving colony reduced to ruins. Families were torn apart, and emergency distress signals echoed across the stars. The Galactic Council had made its move. But humanity was not broken. Instead of fear, rage spread like wildfire. Across every Terran world, factories doubled their production. Shipyards worked without rest, constructing warships faster than ever before. Millions of volunteers rushed to enlist in the military. The message was clear: humanity would not surrender. Aboard the flagship Titan, Admiral Ross studied the battle reports. Orion 7 had fallen, but it had not gone down without a fight. Despite being outnumbered, the defenders had stalled the enemy longer than expected. This gave the Breakpoint fleet enough time to reach its destination. General Malik stood beside Ross, arms crossed. Our stealth teams confirm the enemy has spread their forces thin after the Orion 7 attack. They think we're still in shock. Ross smirked. Good. Let them believe that. Malik nodded. The Council is ready to strike back. We just need to choose the first target. Ross pulled up a holographic map. Here, he said, pointing at a red-marked system. Xerix Prime. Malik raised an eyebrow. The Xelfar homeworld. Ross nodded. They led the Orion 7 attack. Time to remind them who they're dealing with. The battle plan. The Xerix Prime system was heavily defended. As the capital of the Xelfar Empire, it had massive planetary shields, orbital gun platforms, and an elite defense fleet. A direct attack would be suicide. But humanity was not known for fighting fair. Instead of a full-scale invasion, the Breakpoint fleet would launch a surprise assault on the system's main shipyard, the place where the Xelfar built their largest warships. If the shipyard fell, the enemy would lose months, maybe years, of production. Ross gave the order. Launch the fleet. Across human space, hundreds of warships powered up their engines. The largest fleet humanity had ever assembled disappeared into hyperspace. The counterattack had begun. The attack on Xerix Prime. The Xelfar forces were confident. After their victory at Orion 7, they believed humanity would either surrender or take months to recover. So when the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, they were completely unprepared. The first wave of Terran warships appeared right outside the Xerix system, launching thousands of drones to confuse enemy sensors. The Xelfar scrambled their defenses, but before they could react, the second wave struck. Destroyers and battleships burst through the system's outer defenses, firing plasma cannons and railguns with deadly accuracy. The Xelfar fleet tried to form a counterattack, but they were too slow. Admiral Ross's voice echoed across human comm channels. Target the shipyard. Wipe it out. Fighter squadrons weaved through enemy fire, dodging missiles and laser blasts. They struck with pinpoint precision, destroying fuel depots, ammunition storage, and critical infrastructure. The shipyard erupted into flames. Inside the Xelfar War Council, alarms blared. A furious general slammed his claws on the table. Impossible. How did they attack so quickly? An officer shouted in panic. They bypassed our defenses. We didn't think humans would risk a direct strike. The Xelfar commander growled. We underestimated them. By the time reinforcements arrived, it was too late. The Xerix Prime shipyard was nothing but burning wreckage. The human fleet vanished into hyperspace before the enemy could retaliate. The aftermath. The news of the attack spread fast. The Xelfar Empire, one of the most powerful factions in the Galactic Council, had been humiliated. Their enemies, other alien factions, began to doubt their leadership. If the mighty Xelfar could be outmaneuvered so easily, what did that mean for the rest of them? Meanwhile, in human space, the victory ignited a fire in every Terran heart. Celebrations erupted on Earth, Mars, and every colony. People cheered in the streets. For the first time, the galaxy knew what humanity was truly capable of. The Council's fear. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, chaos filled the air. Alien leaders shouted at each other, pointing fingers and blaming the Sci-Fi for their failure. The plan had been simple: strike first, crush the humans, and restore order. But now, the humans had proven they could fight back. Chalvik, still recovering from the shock, growled, "If we do not crush them now, we may never get another chance." Ralka, the High Chancellor, looked at the hologram of the destroyed Zerix shipyard. He clenched his fists. "We need to end this war before it's too late." The Galactic Council prepared for a final, desperate attack. But what they didn't know was that humanity had already planned its next move. A new phase of war. Back on the Titan, Admiral Ross watched as new battle plans appeared on his screen. He had no illusions. This war was far from over. The enemy would come back stronger. But now, it didn't matter. Humanity had proven that it could strike first, that it could fight back, and that it could win. Ross turned to his officers. "Prepare for the next operation. We're just getting started." The destruction of the Zerix Prime shipyard sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The once mighty Sci-Fi Empire had suffered a humiliating defeat, and the Galactic Council was thrown into chaos. For centuries, the most powerful alien species had ruled over the weaker ones, believing themselves superior. But now, humanity had shattered that illusion. The Council had wanted to break the humans. Instead, they had awakened something far worse, a species that refused to kneel. The Council's response. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was filled with anger and fear. The alien leaders, once confident in their strength, now felt the weight of their failure. Ralka, the High Chancellor, slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot continue. The humans have destroyed a major shipyard. We are losing control of this war." Chalvik, the Varnuk fleet commander, hissed, "Their tactics are unpredictable. They fight like no other species we have faced. If we do not act now, they will strike again." Excelthor General growled, "Then we must force them into a final battle. We gather every fleet we have and crush them once and for all." Ralka nodded. "Agreed. We will lure them into a trap. The entire might of the Galactic Council will strike at their strongest fleet." The plan was set. The greatest armada in the history of the galaxy would descend upon humanity. They were certain of victory. They had no idea what was coming. Aboard the Titan, Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of the Titan, watching the stars. His mind was focused, calculating every possible move the enemy could make. General Malik approached. "The enemy is preparing something big." Ross nodded. "I know. They think they can end this war in one decisive strike." Malik smirked. "They don't know what we have been building." For years, humanity had been developing a secret weapon, a fleet so powerful, so advanced, that it had been kept hidden even from most Terran leaders. It was known only as the Breakpoint Fleet. Unlike standard warships, these were equipped with the latest human innovations, cloaking technology, warp jump disruptors, and the most advanced AI-driven battle strategies. Ross activated a holographic display, showing the fleet in its hidden base, deep inside a nebula. Rows of sleek, deadly warships floated in the darkness, ready for battle. Ross turned to his officers. "It's time to unleash the Breakpoint Fleet." The Galactic Council's trap. The enemy's plan was simple. They would attack a key human-controlled sector and force the Terran fleet to respond. The battle would take place at Epsilon 9, a strategic outpost that guarded the path to Earth. If the aliens took it, they would have a direct route to humanity's homeworld. Over 2,000 enemy warships arrived at Epsilon 9, ready to crush the human defenders. They waited. They knew the humans would come. What they didn't expect was what came next. The ambush turns. Admiral Ross led the Terran fleet into battle. Hundreds of human warships appeared in formation, facing the massive alien armada. The Galactic Council's commanders grinned. The humans had fallen into their trap. Ralka gave the order. "All ships, attack." The battle erupted. Lasers, missiles, and plasma blasts filled space as both sides clashed. The human fleet fought bravely, but the enemy had superior numbers. One by one, human ships were being overwhelmed. The alien commanders watched in satisfaction. Victory was close. But then, something changed. Suddenly, dozens of enemy ships lost power. Their engines flickered. Their shields shut down. Their systems were being hacked. Then, without warning, the breakpoint fleet arrived. The turn of the tide. From deep space, the hidden fleet emerged like ghosts. Hundreds of sleek, black warships decloaked behind enemy lines, striking at their weakest points. The Galactic Council had fallen into humanity's trap. The breakpoint fleet unleashed chaos. Cloaked ships bypassed enemy shields and fired directly at their engines. Warp disruptors cut off their retreat, trapping them in the battle. AI-assisted drones swarmed over alien capital ships, disabling their weapons. The enemy fleets, once confident of victory, began to collapse. Inside his command ship, Ralka watched in horror as ship after ship exploded. This is impossible. A Sci-Fi officer panicked. They knew about the trap. They were waiting for us. Ralka's mind raced. How had the humans predicted this? Then he realized. Humanity had been planning this counterattack long before the war even began. The final blow. Admiral Ross stood tall on the Titan's bridge. His plan had worked. The Galactic Council had underestimated them for the last time. "Fire the final barrage," he ordered. From the breakpoint fleet, a wave of supercharged railguns and missile salvos struck the alien command ships. The Sci-Fi flagship exploded, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Their fleet was broken. The remaining alien warships fled in terror, abandoning their wounded and crippled ships behind. Epsilon 9 remained in human hands. And with it, the war had shifted forever. The aftermath. The Galactic Council was in ruins. Their greatest fleet had been destroyed. Their leaders had been humiliated. The illusion of their superiority had been shattered. Inside the human council chamber, President Carter spoke to the gathered leaders of humanity. "This war is no longer about survival. This is about securing our place in the galaxy." Admiral Ross stood beside her. They thought they could break us. Instead, they made us stronger. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. Now, they were fighting for dominion. The destruction of the Galactic Council's Grand Armada sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The once mighty coalition, which had ruled over countless species for centuries, had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of humanity. Fear spread like wildfire. For the first time, the aliens began to question everything they had believed about humans. They are supposed to be weak. They should have surrendered. How did they fight back so hard? The truth was clear now. Humanity was unlike any other species. They did not bow. They did not break. They only became stronger. The Galactic Council in chaos. Inside the Galactic Council's grand chamber, the remaining leaders gathered. The air was thick with tension. The mighty Sci-Fi, Varnuk, and dozens of other empires once stood as the rulers of the galaxy. Now, they were afraid. Ralka, the High Chancellor, looked over the reports with cold fury. "This is unacceptable. We cannot allow these humans to continue." Chalvik, the Varnuk commander, gritted his teeth. "We underestimated them. They fight like no other species." A Sci-Fi general slammed his fist on the table. "They do not follow our rules of war. They strike where we are weak. They do not wait. They do not hesitate." Ralka exhaled slowly. "We need to regroup. Humanity may have won battles, but they cannot win the war." Chalvik crossed his arms. "Then we must find their weakness." The Human Council's next move. Back on Earth, inside the grand halls of the Human Council, the atmosphere was different. There was no fear, only determination. President Carter stood before the gathered leaders. "We have shattered their illusion of control. But the war is far from over. Admiral Ross nodded. The enemy will not stop. They will try to strike back in desperation. General Malik added, we must not give them that chance. We have proven we can defend ourselves. Now, we take the war to them. A large holographic map appeared in the center of the room, showing enemy-controlled sectors. President Carter pointed at a glowing red system, the Sci-Fi homeworld. The room fell silent. Ross narrowed his eyes. You're suggesting we invade? Carter nodded. The Sci-Fi were the first to attack us. They destroyed Orion 7. If we take their homeworld, we send a message to every species in the galaxy. Humanity is not to be challenged. For a moment, no one spoke. The idea was bold, dangerous, but necessary. Ross finally spoke. Then let's finish what they started. The decision was made. Humanity would no longer just fight for survival. They would fight for dominance. The plan: Operation Stormstrike. The invasion of the Sci-Fi homeworld, Xerix Prime, was named Operation Stormstrike. This was not just a battle. This was a message to the galaxy. Humanity would no longer be the prey. They were now the hunters. The Breakpoint fleet would lead the attack. Their mission: cripple the Sci-Fi Empire and force them into unconditional surrender. Ross and Malik reviewed the strategy. Step 1. Disrupt planetary defenses. Human stealth teams would infiltrate enemy space stations and disable communication networks. Step 2. Launch precision strikes. Eye-guided missiles and railgun barrages would destroy key military bases. Step 3. Full-scale assault. Troop carriers and armored divisions would land on the surface and take the Sci-Fi capital. Ross looked at Malik. Once we do this, there's no turning back. Malik smirked. There was never any turning back. The battle begins. Days later, the Breakpoint fleet arrived at Xerix Prime. Thousands of human warships dropped out of hyperspace. The invasion had begun. The Sci-Fi were not unprepared, but they were not ready for this. The first wave of human stealth ships disabled the planet's defense grid. Communication towers and orbital platforms went dark. The second wave launched precision strikes. Sci-Fi military bases exploded into fireballs as railguns and missiles tore through their defenses. The third wave was the ground invasion. Human dropships landed across the capital city. Soldiers in advanced exosuits stormed through the streets, engaging the enemy in brutal urban combat. Sci-Fi warriors fought fiercely, but humanity was stronger. The war that the Sci-Fi had started was now at their doorstep. The fall of Xerix Prime. Inside the Sci-Fi War Council, panic spread. A high-ranking officer shouted, "We are losing control. The humans are inside the capital." The Supreme Chancellor of the Sci-Fi, an aged warrior with scars from centuries of battle, watched the holograms of burning cities. He exhaled sharply. He knew they had lost. They were supposed to be weak, he whispered. An officer turned to him. "What are your orders, Supreme Chancellor?" The old warrior closed his eyes. "We surrender." The word sent shockwaves through the Sci-Fi ranks. Their greatest empire had fallen. Across the planet, human forces secured victory. The last resistance was crushed, and the Sci-Fi government officially surrendered to the Terran Republic. The aftermath. News of the Sci-Fi Empire's fall spread fast. Across the galaxy, alien empires watched in stunned silence. One by one, the remaining members of the Galactic Council began to reconsider their position. Many sued for peace, realizing they could not win against humanity. Others vanished into hiding, afraid of what would happen next. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled through fear. Now, that fear belonged to them. Humanity had risen. Back on Earth, President Carter addressed the galaxy. "We did not seek war, but war was brought to us. We did not ask for power, but now we hold it. Humanity will not be threatened again." The message was clear. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human dominance had begun. The fall of Xerix Prime sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The once mighty Sci-Fi Empire had surrendered, its leaders forced to kneel before humanity. For the first time in history, an alien species that had ruled with fear and dominance was now at the mercy of humans. The Galactic Council, which once controlled the fate of countless worlds, was now in complete disarray. Some species sought peace, some fled, abandoning their territories, and some still plotted in the shadows. But one truth had become clear to all: humanity was now a superpower. The Galactic Council fractures. In the once grand halls of the Galactic Council, the remaining alien leaders argued in desperation. The humans have gone too far. One reptilian senator hissed. They will not stop. First the Xelfar, and soon they will come for us all. Another added. Ralka, the High Chancellor, stood silently, listening to their panic. He had once believed that humans were nothing more than an insignificant species. Now he knew better. The Xelfar had tried to destroy them. Instead, they had been crushed. The Galactic Council had tried to control them. Instead, the Council itself was crumbling. A blue-skinned alien ambassador turned to Ralka. We must act before it is too late. The humans cannot be allowed to rule. Ralka exhaled slowly. He had spent his entire life believing in the superiority of his kind. But now he saw the truth. The galaxy had changed, and the humans were the ones leading that change. We have already lost, he finally said. The only question is how we choose to survive. Earth's next move. Back on Earth, the Human Council gathered to discuss the future. Admiral Ross, General Malik, and President Carter stood before a massive holographic map, showing the remains of the Galactic Council's territory. Many alien factions are surrendering, Ross reported. They know they can't win. Malik smirked. Some of them still want to fight, but without the Xelfar leading them, they are weak. President Carter nodded. Then the war is ending. The question now is, what comes next? Silence filled the room. For years, humanity had fought to survive. Now, they were the ones in power. Would they rule as conquerors? Would they demand vengeance? Or would they forge something new? Carter turned to the gathered leaders. The galaxy is watching us. We must decide, will we lead with strength or with wisdom? Ross spoke first. If we are too soft, they will see us as weak. If we are too harsh, we become no better than the ones who tried to destroy us. Malik crossed his arms. We need a balance. We must make it clear. Humanity will never be threatened again. The decision was made. Humanity would not seek to enslave or destroy, but they would ensure that no species would ever dare attack them again. And for that, they needed to send a final message to the galaxy. The March of Humanity. Across alien worlds, human fleets arrived, not as invaders, but as rulers. On planets where humans had been oppressed, they freed the people. On colonies where alien governments resisted, they removed the corrupt leaders. And on worlds that still sought war, they crushed all opposition. One by one, the remaining factions bowed before humanity. In just a few months, the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was no longer a struggling species fighting for survival. They were the ones setting the rules. A galaxy in shock. The once proud Galactic Council was now nothing more than a broken institution. Some alien species accepted human rule, believing it to be better than the chaos that had existed before. Others resisted, forming hidden factions, hoping to one day challenge human power. And some simply watched, waiting to see what humanity's next move would be. Would they create a peaceful order? Or would they become the next tyrants of the galaxy? Only time would tell. The final stand of the resistance. Deep in the outer rim of the galaxy, a secret meeting was held. A group of alien warlords, former council leaders, and exiled generals gathered in the shadows. We cannot allow the humans to control everything, one of them growled. They are strong, but they are not invincible, another added. A cloaked figure stepped forward, placing a holographic map on the table. "There is one last hope," the figure said. "We must strike before they fully establish their rule." The gathered warlords listened carefully. A plan was forming. The war was not over yet. The rise of the Terran Dominion. Back on Earth, inside the Human Council chamber, President Carter addressed the galaxy. "To those who seek peace, we offer our hand. To those who seek war, we will end you." The message was clear. The Terran Dominion was born. Humanity had risen from the ashes of war. Now they would shape the galaxy itself. But in the shadows, new enemies were gathering. The final battle had not yet begun, and humanity was ready. The Terran Dominion had risen. Humanity, once underestimated and ignored, now stood as the most powerful force in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had collapsed. The Sci-Fi Empire had fallen. Many alien species had surrendered, but not all. Deep in the Outer Rim, a secret alliance of warlords and exiled leaders had formed, the Resistance. They refused to accept human rule. They believed that humanity was a threat to the galaxy, and they were preparing for one last, desperate war. They called it the Final Stand, the last enemy. On a hidden planet in the Veil Nebula, the leaders of the Resistance gathered. A former Galactic Council admiral stood before them. "The humans have conquered too much. If we do not stop them now, they will control everything." A reptilian warlord hissed. "They think they are invincible, but we know their weakness." A Varnok general growled. "We will strike Earth itself. Without their homeworld, they will crumble." The plan was simple but bold, a direct assault on humanity's heart. Every remaining warship, every last soldier, every hidden weapon would be thrown against Earth. It was all or nothing. Either they would destroy humanity, or humanity would destroy them. Earth's warning. On Earth, Admiral Ross stood in the Human Council chamber, reading the latest intelligence reports. His face was grim. General Malik leaned forward. "They're coming, aren't they?" Ross nodded. "Yes, every enemy left in the galaxy is gathering. Their target is Earth." President Carter stood up. "Then we will face them here." Malik clenched his fist. "This will be the biggest battle in human history." Ross looked at the holographic star map. The enemy fleet was massive. Thousands of warships. But Ross smiled. He had been waiting for this. "Let them come," he said. "We'll show them why humanity survived." The battle for Earth begins. 1 week later, the enemy arrived. Over 5,000 alien warships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding Earth. Their weapons charged, their engines burned bright. And then, they attacked. Missiles, plasma beams, and energy cannons rained down on Earth's defenses. The human fleet rose to meet them. The final war had begun. The sky burns. Across Earth's orbit, war erupted. Human dreadnoughts unleashed devastating railgun fire, tearing through alien cruisers. Fighter squadrons danced through the chaos, striking down enemy bombers. Space stations fired massive defense cannons, blasting enemy warships into fireballs. But the enemy was strong. They had nothing left to lose. They fought with desperation, pushing forward, trying to break through the human lines. For every alien warship that fell, another took its place. Earth's defenses were holding, but barely. Ross stood on the bridge of the Titan, shouting orders. "Focus fire on their command ships. We need to break their coordination." Across the battlefield, human forces followed his command. The enemy's leadership was targeted. Their warlords were eliminated. Their generals fell one by one. And yet, they still fought on, because they had one final weapon. The superweapon. A massive alien dreadnought, larger than any ship ever seen, emerged from the darkness of space. Its weapons glowed with an unnatural energy. Ross's eyes widened. "What is that?" Malik's face darkened. "They've built a planet killer. The enemy's final weapon, a super weapon designed to destroy Earth in a single blast." It charged up, gathering power. If it fired, everything would be lost. Ross turned to his officers. We have to stop it. Now. The final strike. The Titan and the Breakpoint fleet raced toward the superweapon. Every remaining human warship focused fire on its shields. Explosions erupted across its hull, but it was still operational. The weapon's energy core glowed brighter. Ross gritted his teeth. They were running out of time. Then Malik had an idea. A risky, impossible idea. We overload our warp drives and ram the Titan straight into its core, he said. Ross stared at him. That's insane. Malik grinned. Yeah, but it'll work. Ross smirked. All right, let's end this war. The Titan accelerated, heading straight for the superweapon. The enemy fleet realized too late what was happening. Ross and Malik gave the final command. Fire everything. Missiles, railguns, lasers, torpedoes. Everything hit at once. The Titan crashed into the superweapon's core, and the sky exploded. Victory. The explosion lit up the entire battlefield. The superweapon was gone. The enemy fleet was shattered. The surviving warlords surrendered. The final war was over. Humanity had won. The new era. Days later, President Carter addressed the galaxy. The war is over. Humanity stands victorious. She looked into the cameras. But we do not seek destruction. We do not seek conquest. She paused. We seek order. The Terran Dominion was now the greatest power in the galaxy. And under human rule, the galaxy would know peace. But if anyone dared to challenge Earth again, they would not get a second chance. The legend of humanity. Across the stars, the story of humanity spread. A species that had been considered weak, a species that had been underestimated, had risen to become legends. The war was over, but the age of humanity had just begun.